Alright, so Japan knows how popular they are. They make tons of money from tourism alone, so it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone when they found another way to benefit from their popularity in the West. And no, I'm not talking about the 2D WAN. I'm talking about gaming, but a very specific niche in gaming that I'll call the Japanese life simulator genre. Now, two very popular game franchises from Japan fall underneath this. The first being Persona, which follows Japanese high schoolers as they juggle relationships, part-time jobs, killing demons in an alternate dimension, final exams, the normal teenager stuff. Now, the next franchise is on the very opposite spectrum. It's a very serious crime drama, simply known as Yakuza, a franchise which follows ex-Yakuza member Kazuma Kiryu as he does very serious crime drama things. Very serious. I think these kinds of games have gotten popular due to there being a large audience of weebs who want to have not only the experience of playing an anime, but also visiting Japan, and these games give them a sort of simulated experience. It helps that some of that gameplay revolves around living in Japan, and a lot of them do a great job at recreating Japan, even when the main focus isn't necessarily a life simulator like Ghostwire Tokyo, which finds you in an open world Shibuya that has many real life landmarks on the map. If it wasn't for all the yokai running around, it actually would be a great digital way to explore Shibuya. And Persona and Yakuza are just two franchises that have found their own formulas to make this kind of niche their own. Now, what if I told you there's a game that is as bizarre or maybe even more bizarre than those two franchises? A Japanese life sim that has you walking the streets of totally not Tokyo, where you can do such activities like eating, shopping, helping others, join a cult, get kicked out of a cult, start another cult, solve an arson case, and get kidnapped in a human trafficking ring. All of that happens in a game called Disaster Report 4. This hidden gem of a game was released by Grandzilla Inc., a Japanese video game developer based in Ishikawa, Japan. It released in Japan in 2018, but in the West in 2020. Like its title suggests, this is the fourth one in the series, with the original games actually being made on the PlayStation 2, with the game designer being quoted saying, "I thought it would be entertaining if I made a game where it wasn't aliens and monsters attacking, but the city itself being a threat." Now, all that stuff that I did mention earlier does happen in this game, and more, so much more. But the whole point is you're just a normal guy who arrived in the city for an interview when suddenly a massive earthquake struck. From this point on, the game kind of plays very linear. You're on a very shitty roller coaster, but they add some little roleplay segments for you. The overall objective now is just to get out of the city and survive. You'll deal with aftershocks, looters, fires, flooding, molesters, more. But through all that, you're able to choose dialogue options, which has as much impact as like a Telltale dialogue choice, but I guess it's something. And there's two main avenues for this. You can either be a really good Samaritan, helping others for nothing through this awful disaster, or you can be the complete asshole who decides not to help anyone unless there's something in it for you. There's also full customization from clothing, hairstyles. You're able to choose your gender, which also affects kind of how people react to you in the world. So, I mean, the role-playing has something going for it. The actual overall gameplay is actually very explore heavy. They want you to walk around and interact with people and objects, so that way you can move on to the next areas. And these areas can range from like very small to very big. The problem with these is that you get to the point where they start as simple as like, oh, I'm talking to this person and I'm running over here, I'm talking to this person, to the point where you're literally being like, I have to interact with this notebook. Then I can go up 5 flights of stairs to talk to this guy. Then I go back down 3 flights of stairs through a loading screen. And then I can finally progress to the next area. So definitely after a while, it gets extremely tedious. The other 0.1% of gameplay is actually survival. So you have like a health bar, a cleanliness bar, a hunger and thirst bar, and a stress bar. But the problem with this is you kind of don't notice it because the whole point is to explore. So they didn't really put a lot of thought into actually having these bars affect gameplay, I think. I played the game like 3 times. I don't think I've ever had a problem. Story-wise, I'll give you guys the first kind of couple hours of the game. I don't want to spoil too much because I do think the story is very interesting and very entertaining. So after crawling off the bus and walking around for a little bit, you kind of find out that the job that you were interviewing for has kind of just said, hey, due to the disaster, we're not taking interviews right now. So you're like, all right, so now what's the plan? You meet a teacher who is having some problems with her students. You talk to them and you kind of decide, all right, let's move on to the next area together. So you move on and you get to this larger area where the aftershocks are suddenly getting worse and buildings are collapsing around you and you hear a scream from a building. So you decide to be the good Samaritan and climb in and help who's ever stuck in there. After fighting a office worker, you help her down and you regroup with the teacher and the students. After spending a night together, you guys decide that you're going to run ahead and see if you can find any more help, and they'll stay behind and just kind of set up camp there. That will be a common thing that happens a bunch of times in this game. You'll meet characters in a section and you'll help them out, and they'll be like, I'm gonna go with you, and then they'll go with you maybe for like 2 more sections, and they're like, you keep going, I'll stay here, I'll stay, and you're just like, all right, and your character gives absolutely no shits and just keeps on going. After walking around for a while, you find this guy who's beat up, and he's like, this guy's chasing me and beating me up, and I don't know what he wants. And you're like, oh man, that's awful, man. I can't believe this is happening to you. And he's like, yeah, I'm just looking for my fiance. And you're like, I'll keep an eye out, man. Don't worry about it. I got you. And he's like, thanks, man. And then you kind of keep going. And ironically enough, you end up running into the fiance, and you save her from these 2 creepos, and then that's it. You kind of are a duo for like the longest time before you reunite them together. I would say that's the first kind of act of like the whole game. It's about the first maybe 2-3 hours, depending on how long it actually takes you to get from area to area, because like I said, it's either walking from point A to point B, or you got to figure out who you're talking to and solving some sort of mathematical equation that they gave you to solve world hunger. I'm not gonna lie to you, after you reunite the 2 lovers, this is kind of also where the story kind of takes a dip. It's like playing filler episodes is the best way I can describe it, but you play like 2 hours of filler episodes. The game tries to be very entertaining. It understands that it's a very serious topic. A disaster is nothing to joke about, and it does cover some of those darker themes, which I don't think is a problem. Like I said, I think the major problem that the story suffers from, honestly, is how tedious the actual gameplay is, because so many times you'll find yourself just lost. You don't know what to do. And I don't mind when a game doesn't hold my hand and treats me like a child. Sometimes I'm stupid, all right? I'm just dumb. I need you to just grab my hand a little bit, point me in the right direction, and be like, there you go, okay? Sometimes, not all the time, just sometimes. All right, but to continue without giving too much away, you kind of keep walking around in these filler episodes, and you eventually, when you're going, hey guys, this disaster is crazy, and they go, fuck you, and they kind of chase you out of the area. And then you get back to the girl after like a day, and you're like, man, it's been rough. And she goes, yeah, I actually got a way out. And it's like, well, what the fuck did I just do all that for? Why was I over here doing all that nonsense? Mind you, now at this point, all the chaos is over. Construction workers are coming in, water and electricity are back on, people are saying, so you're just like, why are we trying to rush out of here? People are even talking about like, hey, there's like centers like handing out water and food and stuff, and your character is just like, I gotta get out of here, I gotta leave, the city is collapsing. It's like, it's really not anymore. Like everything, all the aftershocks seem to be done. Let's just go take a nap. We haven't naps like in 3 days. Can we nap, please? So there's definitely some flaws in the story, but I would still give the story a good maybe 7 out of 10. It's a decent enough story to play through. The definite strong suit of the game is its set pieces and the buildings collapsing around you and actually happening in real time, and you're running away, and it's just really cool. And I know building destruction is not an uncommon thing now in video games, but when you're just a normal person and a building is falling towards you and the only thing you can do is run away and then duck and hope that it doesn't hit you, it's kind of cool. So it's just a nice change of pace of what you're usually playing, I would say. Overall, this game is really fun. It's a PC and PlayStation game, and I think you can play it for free on PS Plus. And then in my research, I found that the Kobe Fire Bureau apparently worked with the devs to kind of show them how people would actually react in a disaster and stuff they could do to help them in a disaster. And I don't want to say like a video game is a good PSA for how to deal with a disaster in real life. It's not, but it probably won't be the last time, and it wasn't the first time that a game was used to show like how a disaster or an event can affect people in their lives. I think it's just a good way to look at it and be like, this is what happens during a disaster. But yeah, that's Disaster Report. I just think it's a really fun game. I don't think it's necessarily a great or good game, but I just think it's a really fun game that a lot of people probably just will look past, and I just wanted to make a video about it. I played it a long time ago, and I think I posted a video on my channel, but now that I'm kind of better at editing, I wanted to actually talk about it, because it is one of those games that I feel like I wouldn't have played until I saw like a video on it, and I was like, that kind of looks fun, and I played it, and I did have fun, but it's definitely one of those games I would have just looked past. So I wanted to make a video and maybe get it more out there so people can play it themselves after watching this video. And apparently they're working on Disaster Report 5. They haven't said when it will be released, but apparently it's supposed to be an open world, which I don't know how that's gonna work. I think that's a very cool concept, to have an entire open world where a disaster is happening. I mean, look at Battlefield with the tornado and everything. That was big. But, you know, until then, I guess we'll just have to work with summer memories here. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to hit that like button. It really does help me out. If you enjoyed this video of me talking about a random Japanese game that I found, then check out all my other videos talking about video games where I just ramble on about what I like about video games and other things. Like my horror games remakes versus originals video, where I talk about how a lot of horror games have kind of changed over the years, especially with their remakes.